As Americans, we cannot allow this to continue. It is time to liberate our communities from this scourge of drug addiction.
In the early hours before dawn, when most Americans were still asleep, a federal operation was about to expose one of the most shocking betrayals in modern judicial history. What investigators discovered would send tremors through the entire justice system and force the nation to confront an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the most dangerous criminals wear robes and carry gavels. The numbers alone were staggering. Nearly 2 tons of illegal narcotics, over 300 weapons, more than $140 million traced through a web of shell corporations. But the true horror wasn't found in these statistics. It was in the man at the center of it all. Marcus Hale had spent decades building a reputation as a respected judge in Georgia. His photograph hung proudly in the courthouse, showing him alongside the state's governor, both men smiling beneath words that now seemed like cruel mockery. Justice for all. Yet beneath this carefully constructed facade, federal investigators believed they had uncovered something far darker, a systematic partnership between a trusted pillar of the legal system and one of the most dangerous drug cartels operating in South America. The Dawn Raid. The operation began at precisely 5:42 a.m. on a foggy morning in Cobb County. The residential street, normally peaceful at this hour, suddenly filled with the quiet presence of 5 unmarked vehicles. No flashing lights, no sirens, just the methodical movement of federal agents in tactical gear, their laser sights cutting through the pre-dawn mist. The battering ram struck the reinforced door with a sound that shattered the morning silence. Inside, the house told 2 contradictory stories. On the surface, everything appeared normal. A coffee maker still warm in the kitchen, family photographs on the walls, the ordinary trappings of suburban American life. But thermal imaging had already revealed the truth, hidden behind the bookshelf. When agents broke through the false wall, they found themselves staring at what looked like a professional distribution warehouse. Tightly wrapped packages bearing cartel identification marks were stacked with military precision. Beside them sat bundled cash in sequential serial numbers, so fresh the bills still smelled of ink. The basement yielded an even more disturbing discovery: a secure vault filled with automatic weapons, most with their identification numbers carefully removed. These weren't the tools of self-defense. They were the instruments of organized crime. One investigator, his voice barely above a whisper, captured the moment that would define the entire case. This isn't simple corruption. This represents absolute loyalty, but loyalty to a criminal enterprise, not to the country he swore to serve. The digital trail. Hale's smartphone, unlocked using his own fingerprint, became the Rosetta Stone that decoded years of criminal activity. Encrypted communications with a Venezuelan drug lord known as Tandagua revealed a relationship that went far beyond casual contact. These weren't vague conversations. They were detailed operational discussions about shipment schedules, transportation routes, and even specific court decisions timed to coincide with cargo arrivals. One recovered message chilled investigators to their core. 38 shipments this quarter, same corridor, 0 interference. If accurate, this meant nearly a metric ton of heroin and synthetic opioids had flowed through the southeastern United States over just 3 months, all without triggering a single inspection. The financial investigation revealed an even more sophisticated operation. Forensic accountants traced more than $40 million moving through 47 different corporate entities over 6 years. Each company appeared legitimate on paper: proper registration, legal addresses, functioning bank accounts. Yet not one employed a single person or produced any actual product or service. The money traveled under innocuous labels: consulting fees, legal research, professional training services. Each transfer was carefully sized to avoid triggering federal reporting requirements, yet collectively, they represented a massive money laundering operation hidden in plain sight. The network expands. As investigators dug deeper, the case transformed from one corrupt official into something far more systemic. Hale's calendar revealed a pattern of meetings disguised as social events, lunch appointments, golf outings, routine case reviews. Cross-referencing these dates with financial records showed that more than $8 million moved through intermediary accounts within hours of these gatherings. The payment descriptions were chillingly brief. Retainer cleared. The investigation had uncovered 12 local officials and 3 senior law enforcement officers who appeared to be part of Hale's network. This wasn't merely one judge gone rogue. It was an entire infrastructure of corruption embedded within the institutions Americans trust to keep them safe. A Department of Justice spokesperson, briefing reporters from behind a podium bearing the federal seal, put it bluntly. "We're not talking about criminals hiding in shadows. We're discussing individuals in positions of authority who walked through government security checkpoints every single day." Operation Crosscut. The scope of the conspiracy demanded a response of unprecedented scale. Operation Crosscut launched simultaneously across 7 states at 5:30 a.m. on a carefully coordinated morning. Federal agents, DEA officers, and state police moved in concert, executing dozens of warrants at the same moment. In Savannah, what appeared to be abandoned warehouses along the river suddenly became active crime scenes. Thermal imaging revealed multiple individuals inside structures that supposedly sat vacant. Within minutes, 14 suspects were in custody, and investigators had seized nearly 100 kilograms of heroin and fentanyl. Houston saw similar action at an industrial facility that had been operating under the guise of legitimate manufacturing. When agents breached the compound, they found active drug processing operations, tables covered with powder, industrial presses for creating compressed bricks, and a soundproof room filled with packaging equipment. Each finished product bore a distinctive mark, a torn representation of justice scales, the cartel's signature known as the Seal of Silence. In New Jersey, surveillance teams tracked 3 trucks leaving a container facility near the port. When intercepted, the vehicles appeared to be carrying humanitarian aid supplies. Beneath false floors, investigators found hundreds of kilograms of narcotics packaged for distribution. The operation's results were staggering. Nearly 2 tons of drugs seized, over 300 firearms recovered, and $142 million in assets frozen or confiscated. The paper trail of betrayal. Perhaps the most damning evidence came from a filing cabinet in a Newark facility. Inside, investigators found meticulous records listing names, official positions, and payment codes. At the top of multiple pages, written in Hale's own hand, was a phrase that summarized the entire conspiracy. "Clearance guaranteed. No deviations permitted." This wasn't speculation or theory. It was documentary proof that a sitting judge had personally vouched for criminal shipments moving through American territory. The Department of Justice convened emergency sessions in Washington. 47 red folders were distributed, each containing evidence against a different official or law enforcement officer. The accused included county sheriffs, district prosecutors, a state transportation director, and individuals connected to federal funding oversight. Legal teams worked around the clock, organizing evidence into 3 categories: financial crimes, trafficking facilitation, and obstruction of justice. All materials were transferred to a secure facility for processing. The public reckoning. The revelation sparked a crisis of confidence that rippled across the country. In Georgia, 2 sheriffs resigned before charges could be filed. Town halls filled with angry citizens demanding answers. Signs appeared outside courthouses asking a question that had no easy answer. When the law itself becomes criminal, where can justice be found? Social media exploded with outrage and disbelief. International news organizations compared the scandal to Watergate, calling it the most significant corruption case in modern American history. Legal scholars suggested it would become a defining case study in how democratic institutions can be corrupted from within. A preliminary congressional report listed 184 individuals facing charges. 21 worked in law enforcement, 5 held administrative positions. 158 were connected to financial or logistics operations. 48 properties were seized, 29 bank accounts frozen. 8 independent auditing firms were assigned to trace suspicious financial flows. Seeds of reform. From the wreckage emerged efforts to rebuild. Georgia established an independent judicial ethics commission with 11 members empowered to review the financial activities of all court officials. New regulations required mandatory income disclosures, strict limits on gifts, and quarterly monitoring for financial irregularities. Community organizations stepped forward as well. In Atlanta, law students created the Clear Line Project, using open-source data tools to track public budgets and consulting contracts. Chicago journalists built a public database mapping government expenditures. New York civil rights groups launched a transparency initiative demanding full disclosure of court spending. Their message was consistent. If justice requires light, then every window must be opened. The trial and aftermath. When Marcus Hale finally stood before a federal court, the man who had once commanded respect now appeared diminished and hollow. As prosecutors listed the 184 defendants connected to his network, he stared at the floor, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. Asked if he had anything to say to the American people, Hale responded with 3 words that crystallized the entire tragedy. I was loyal. Not honest, not remorseful, just loyal. Loyalty severed from any ethical foundation, loyalty that had become a weapon rather than a virtue. The sentence was inevitable, life imprisonment without possibility of parole. But the story didn't end with one conviction. Other states began reviewing officials with unexplained wealth. Reform movements pushed for comprehensive legislation requiring financial disclosures from all law enforcement personnel. The conversation had shifted from punishing one corrupt judge to fundamentally restructuring how the system polices itself. The legacy. Today, a small plaque stands outside the Cobb County Courthouse. It doesn't mention Marcus Hale by name or reference the specific case. Instead, it carries a simple message that serves as both memorial and warning. Justice does not begin in the courtroom. It begins the moment one person refuses to look away. The agents, auditors, and analysts who worked the case received no public ceremonies or medals. They simply returned to their posts, knowing that similar networks might still operate in other jurisdictions. A single line in a Department of Justice report, easily overlooked, confirmed this reality. 4 additional networks under active review. The house where Hale once lived stands empty behind security fencing, a stark reminder of how trust, once broken, cannot be easily restored. Neighbors who once greeted him with respect now refer to it simply as the house without windows. The physical structure remains, but the moral foundation has crumbled. The case forced Americans to confront an uncomfortable truth. Narcotics don't merely destroy individual lives through addiction. They corrode the very institutions that hold society together when those sworn to uphold the law choose instead to profit from its violation. One journalist, writing in the aftermath, captured this duality perfectly. No prison exists that's large enough to contain the magnitude of this betrayal. The eternal vigil. The Marcus Hale case serves as a stark reminder that justice is not a static achievement, but an ongoing commitment. It requires constant vigilance, uncomfortable questions, and the courage to investigate even those who wear the symbols of authority. In the final report filed with federal authorities, one investigator wrote words that should be engraved on every courthouse wall. There is no such thing as permanent justice. There are only people who refuse to stop fighting for it. That fight continues today, in forensic labs analyzing financial records, in community meetings demanding transparency, in newsrooms investigating suspicious patterns, and in the hearts of ordinary citizens who understand that democracy survives only through active participation. The story of Marcus Hale is not primarily about drugs or money or even corruption. It's about the price of vigilance and the catastrophic cost of looking away. When one person in power decides that loyalty to criminal enterprise matters more than loyalty to principle, the entire system trembles. But when enough people decide to demand better, to question authority, and to refuse complicity through silence, that same system can begin to heal. The plaque outside that Georgia courthouse tells us where justice truly begins, not in grand buildings or solemn ceremonies, but in the simple, courageous act of keeping our eyes open and refusing to close them, no matter how uncomfortable the truth might be.